Motion we approve the minutes from April 22nd meeting.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Need a motion for May 10th, 2016 council meeting minutes, including executive session.
I make a motion we accept the meeting minutes from May the 10th, 2016.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Need a motion for June 6th, 2016 special call council meeting, including executive session.
I make a motion we accept the minutes from the June 6th, 2016 meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Down to old business. Number 5, Jarrard Davis, LLP, Phase 2, findings report in regard to investigation. Mr. Ken Jarrard.
I'd like to go ahead and make the motion that we allow him extra time if needed, because I think he will go over his 5 minutes.
You may need some extra time.
So,
Do I have a second? All in favor? You have full, Mr. Jarrard.
Council, thank you very much for having me this evening. My name is Ken Jarrard. I'm with the law firm of Jarrard Davis down in Cumming. You may remember me. I've been here before. I was here in February with respect to a portion of this investigative review. And I'm here tonight to present to you and findings with respect to the phase report. So let me just go ahead and dive right in. I have handed to you a notebook that contains both our narrative findings as well as backup for those findings. And so I want to explain very briefly how we got here. The City of Blue Ridge commissioned my law office to come up and to conduct a review based upon operational concerns with respect to malfeasance, non-feasance, irregularities, what have you, with respect to the City of Blue Ridge government. Obviously, you were looking to balance both good stewardship with fiscal responsibility, and so the recommendation you made was divided into 2 phases. You may recall we came up earlier in the year and conducted a series of interviews with elected officials and staff, and from that we compiled 2 different lists. One of them was a preliminary list of just observations that we made that I reported to you in February, where I went through a lot of the sort of observational and management practices concerns that we had raised. But then I also prepared what we called a master list. And that list was a list of issues that had been reported to us during the preliminary investigation that I felt were worthy of additional review. Now I want to be very clear to you that just because something made it on the master list does not mean that it was accurate or doesn't mean that it was true. It was simply an accusation that was made either implicitly or explicitly during the phase 1 of the investigation that I believe warranted an additional inquiry by this office. And you were good enough in February to commission us to conduct that additional review. And so we did. What you have in front of you is a fairly lengthy report, and the gallery and you are in luck tonight because I'm not going to read all the 17 pages of it single space. I am going to read some of it though, because I think that candidate forum warrants it. It's an open meeting. There's the press here, and you're here, and I think it's appropriate to do that. However, the written document is what I want you to have. I want you to look at it. I know, of course, it will be a public document. I want you also to understand, those of you who may not have been here the first time that I made my presentation, that this is what my law office does. We are local government lawyers, represent cities and counties all over Georgia. And I take this very seriously, various reasons of trust that you've been put in my office. First of all, it's important to understand that we were not your lawyers for purposes of this. No one, you did not retain us to represent you. You retained us to investigate. And you should be commended for that. Not many governments do that. It is certainly a leap of faith, and it is certainly an expression of your intention that you wanted to do this together. And so I applaud you for that. But again, we take it very seriously. So I want to emphasize that as well. The three items that we had identified as part of phase one of our investigation that we call the master list that we believe were worthy of additional inquiry are at the bottom of page one of the document that I've just provided to you. Number one was the financial accountability of the city department regarding reported irregular liquidation of city assets and accounting of cash transactions. Basically, it was an allegation that certain assets belonging to the city, in this instance handguns, had been liquidated in a way to the proceeds from liquidation had not been handled appropriately. There was also an issue raised to me with respect to cash transactions involving certain calendar sales that were part of a sort of a means of which funds were raised.
Speaking to the microphone.
Can't hear me?
It's hard
There
to
is
hear
a
you.
difficult here.
Thank you.
Okay, so can everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
So there was an issue with respect to the handling of cash associated with the annual sale of calendars. Number two was an ongoing question regarding the mayor's place of residence. This is an allegation that has, as we understand it, been ongoing for some time, and the decision was made to go ahead and get to the bottom of that. Number three was a review of the various allegations that, candidly, when you authorized us to look at this last element, you didn't even know what these were, and I did not reveal them. But it was a review of whether city officials all or in the past have utilized city resources for personal gain or for the betterment of friends and families. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go through the methodology of what we use. I think that's important to serve the stage or set the stage for how we got to the conclusions we reached. And then I'm going to go through the actual findings. Now, with respect to the findings related to number one, that is the department and the cash transactions related to the police department, I am not going to read the entirety of our findings. It is all in your text. It's all in your book. I'm going to go to the conclusions. With respect to the allegations involving the mayor's residence and the allegations involving various city officials, I will read everything, subject, of course, to being shut down, which I understand for time considerations. I'm happy to honor that, but I do want to read those. So let me go through the methodology that we used. We came up between the dates of April 14th and May 25th, and we met in person or by telephone with Finance Director Alicia Stewart, Police Chief Donnie Searcy, Mayor Donna Whitener, Councilmember Angie R., Police Lieutenant Gary Huffman, Councilmembers Rodney Kendall, and former City Administrator Bill Cybers. Additionally, Jarrard Davis attorneys spoke individually via telephone conference with several additional individuals outside of the city government who were reported to have additional information regarding issues on the so-called master list based upon their business relations with the city. The identities of those non-city personnel contacted in the course of this investigation are not included in this report. However, they are in our files. I will tell you that we heard some feedback from various individuals with respect to other things that were not included in our master list, and I will tell you, members of the council, we did not deviate from our master list. We felt like our charge was fairly specific, and it was fair. And so, irrespective of maybe some other things that we were advised, we stuck to what we had agreed to and what's your information. Everybody still hear me? No. Barely. I'm afraid if I keep talking louder, though, it seems like it sends a loud set of
Maybe turn that microphone directly up to you a little bit.
Maybe like this. Maybe that's better.
that might
Similar to phase one, during the phase two interviews, we advised the interviewees that we were not their attorney. Each interviewee was asked a preset list of questions and provided the opportunity to explain the relevant information. Some interviewees chose to share correspondence, photographs, or other documentation with our attorneys related to their personal knowledge. The last two sentences are worthy of some emphasis. It is worthy of emphasis that Jarrard Davis did not have the subpoena power as part of this investigatory process. Therefore, while we were able to interview witnesses and ask very direct and probing questions, we could not compel individuals to cooperate, nor were individuals placed under oath. With that caveat out of the way, I do want to say that everyone that we spoke with, we felt, the attorneys that provided the feedback as well, felt were forthcoming and were cooperative. And I think that is a fair finding in any investigation process. In other words, the citizens need to understand that. I did not get many, if at all, close to it. I want to go now to number one, that is the allegations with respect to the liquidation or basically the disposition of certain city assets. In this instance, it was, in fact, pistols. Make sure I can identify it correctly. It was 12 Glock 22 Gen, 40 caliber. Well, it was handguns. I want to make sure I say this correctly. And by the way, there is a reason, as I'm going through the report, why I may read it and not just sort of ad-lib it like I would in front of a jury or in front of a judge. And the reason is because in an investigation, particularly when you've got individuals that are part of the investigation, it's very important that I be very clear and specific with the language that I use. And so when we drafted this report, every word in here is on purpose. And I don't want to deviate too far from the report, lest I do a disservice to those individuals that are named in the report. So I hope you have, I typically don't read anything, but I hope that at least explains why I will. All right, I'm going to go right to the findings with respect to the pistol or the firearm issue, whether or not the funds handled with respect to the disposition of those city assets was handled appropriately. And some of you may recall the issue was there was in fact a distribution back to certain police officers out of the proceeds from the distribution of those city assets. As we know, whenever city assets are disposed of, particularly when they generate funds, the money should come back into the city coffers and it should remain. However, we also believe that this was identified quickly as part of an audit process in the city of Blue Ridge, and all those funds were promptly returned to the city of Blue Ridge. So I'm going to go right to my finding. This is on page 4, members of the council. At the time those funds were distributed to the police officers, that was the part of this that I believe was improper. The city finance department and council were reportedly aware of and in agreement with the decision to do so. However, while preparing the 2015 city audit, the decision to reimburse the police officers was subsequently determined to be improper, and the city finance department recognized that all of the funds should have been deposited into the police department fund. When the finance department discovered the error and brought it to the attention of the police department, the police officers, through Chief Searcy, returned the money to the city on June 11, 2015, and the funds were placed in the appropriate account. And there is, in fact, an exhibit. All of this is supported by exhibits and documentation to the extent that we were able to access it, and there is an exhibit reflected. Our investigation has revealed that city financial policies were either lacking or otherwise inadequate prior to 2015, which resulted in poor record keeping, a confusing expenditure policy, and in this instance, an inappropriate distribution of city funds. It is that uncertainty that likely caused this financial error, which was promptly remedied upon its discovery. This error occurred prior to the city's adoption of new.
I didn't get that.
Is that a question for me?
No.
It's not. This error occurred prior to the city's adoption of new comprehensive purchasing policies, which were implemented in the summer of 2015 to govern and regulate these types of transactions. While the reimbursement of $1,708 to the officers was improper, the facts do not lead us to conclude it was the product of an improper motivation. Moreover, it was promptly remedied. Therefore, I make no adverse finding with respect to that issue that's been raised. The other issue pertains to a calendar fundraising program that apparently is employed under the police department as well. I go through the specifics of the mechanics of this fundraising How it's done, basically business by ads in these calendars, and therefore they're distributed free, is my understanding, but it's the actual purchasing of the ad space that generates the funding, and it's done by way of a company called, I'll get this correctly, the Police and Sheriff's Press Company, out of, I believe it's Vidalia, Georgia. This has been something that the police chief, a program he has been involved in for years and years. The question comes is, how is the money handled with respect to this transaction with the press? So I'm going to go ahead and go to conclusions here as well. And again, there's more to this. The facts are in my narrative, but I'm going to go to the conclusions, so I'm not up here for 3 hours. Through the course of this investigation, Jarrard Davis found no evidence of financial malfeasance or impropriety on the part of the police department with regard to the calendar program. However, the business practice that is described in our report, in our opinion, does not fully protect the city's interests, and it is recommended that the business model be amended to more appropriately reflect present-day best management practices. There is no written agreement of any kind between the city and the press. There is no system in place by which the press provides an accounting report to the city to identify the revenues received from this calendar program. Unfortunately, this sort of informal financial relationship may have been customary when this relationship was first conceived roughly 20 years ago. But we now live in an environment where transparency and accountability are foundational in all government institutions. It is likely there are mixed motives by way of the businesses in this city making contributions as part of this calendar program. They may have, of course, a self-serving interest, and that is to be advertised in the calendars. But there is also another reason. Many of these businesses are likely providing funding, at least in part based upon their civic-minded sense of community. Consequently, it is both appropriate and a best practice to memorialize this relationship and agreement between the press and Blue Ridge in order to definitively understand the cost involved, the recuperation of costs back to the city of Blue Ridge, how much is being taken away out of the proceeds for administrative costs, and otherwise to ensure this money is actually handled by the city finance department, and the drawdowns of these funds are not coming from the press, but are in fact coming from the city's finance department. Bottom line, I don't find any malfeasance with respect to this program, but it does need to be memorialized by way of a written agreement. Going on to the next issue pertaining to the mayor's place of residency. This is an issue that has been ongoing for a while. Section 2B of the City of Blue Ridge Charter provides as follows: that no person shall be eligible to serve as mayor or council member unless he or she shall have been a resident of the city for 12 months prior to the election of mayor or council member. Each such person shall continue to reside within the city during the period of service and shall be registered and qualified to vote in municipal elections of this city. So basically, there were 3 questions that we had to answer. I'm going to now read. Forgive me for that, but again, I want to be very clear with my language. Mayor Whitener has acknowledged that she is aware of these allegations and has provided documentation to this office as part of her efforts in aiding in the investigation. Mayor Whitener was elected in office in 2010. She currently owns property at 266 Orban Lance Drive, previously numbered as 169 Orban Lance Connector, which is within the boundaries of the city. And in 2006, constructed a 65,000 square foot home furnishing outlet business on the property with several tenant spaces. Above the aforementioned furnishing business on the mezzanine level exists a 2-bedroom, 1,650 square foot residential apartment. The city building inspector has confirmed that the building was built in accordance with the city's zoning requirements, and on March 10, 2006, Mayor Whitener was issued a certificate of occupancy for construction. The general contractor who reported the construction of the structure has confirmed verbally and in writing that in the plan of the 266 Orban Lance Drive property with Donna Whitener and Clyde Portland, we discussed and confirmed that the apartment was included in the building. We also confirmed that the apartment was used as a residence for Donna Whitener. On January 30th of 2006, a site inspection and building evaluation was performed in connection with that property, which revealed the small residence located at the mezzanine level appeared to have full interior finishes. According to the Panama County Board of Elections, Mayor Whitner has been registered to vote in Panama County since 1992. and registered to vote in the city under the 266 Orphan Lance Drive address since at least 2008. Therefore, the issue of whether she is registered to vote in the city per the charter is not satisfied. With respect to the definition of residency, I will tell you that Georgia law treats residency as a definite amorphous legal concept. The report goes through list after list, I'm not going to read it, of what has to be looked at to determine whether there is in fact a residency. But I will tell you on page 9, in the middle of the paragraph, you will see that what the case law basically says is until you have an avowed intention to live elsewhere, where you live at the time is where you are considered to be residing. Mayor Whitner disclosed that she owns several properties in the state of Georgia which are not located within the city, and that on occasion she spends time at these properties. However, she maintains that her primary residence is the 266 Orphan Lance Drive address. She declares that she received her personal mail at that address, and this investigation has revealed no evidence to the contrary. She declares that she has never filed a homestead exemption regarding any of these properties. That would have been important as a fact point to me, that our review of property tax records supports that assertion. Based upon the documentary evidence that we have obtained and reviewed, as well as our interviews with the mayor, we find nothing to suggest that the mayor's residence is any place other than 266 Orphan Lance Drive. Have we exhausted every possible avenue by which a finding of residency could be reviewed? No. However, the ability to prove otherwise is beyond the scope of this investigation. The only way we believe it would be possible to discount considerable documentary evidence establishing our finding would be the recruitment of private investigators to stake out and determine where the mayor appears to reside in the evenings, interviews with family, friends, and acquaintances, none of which would have to respond to us anyway without subpoena power. In the absence of those very invasive investigatory techniques, we believe the findings we have made above constitute the best readily available evidence with respect to the residency issue. We are comfortable with the conclusions we have rendered, and we believe that this matter should be put to rest. Number 3. This pertains to city officials having utilized city resources for personal gain for the betterment of their families and friends. This is comprised of a couple of subparts. And again, forgive me if you're going to be putting up with me a little bit longer. I do want to walk you through this as well. That's great. In 2009, the city voted to give away property at the end of West Main Street to a city resident at no cost to that resident. This was done consistent with section 6.32 of the city charter, which states the city council may quitclaim any rights it may have in property not needed for public purposes upon request by the mayor and adoption of a resolution, both finding that the property is not needed for public or other purposes, and that the interest of the city has no readily ascertainable monetary value. Accordingly, pursuant to that section, the city may in fact quitclaim any rights it has in a piece of property for which the city determines that there is no public need and for which there is no readily ascertainable monetary value. However, such action must be done pursuant to a request by the mayor and adoption of a resolution. Our investigation has revealed that during a public meeting on June 9, 2009, the city council voted unanimously in favor of abandoning a right-of-way that ran through a resident's property, which the city reportedly had no need for purposes and conveyed the property to the resident at no cost. The deed for this exchange was reportedly executed by the city attorney. However, at this point, that deed has not been received. That is immaterial to this analysis. While this transaction appears to have been conducted in accordance with the city charter, the procedure raised issues concerning compliance with two components of Georgia law. One of them, of course, is the Georgia prohibition against gratuities found in the Georgia Constitution, and the other is the state law regarding abandonment. Both must be complied with in order for there to be a legal and valid transfer of city assets to anyone, including private property. While it is true that apparently the charter was followed in this instance, our recommendation with respect to this conveyance of property is that the option to be run by the city attorney again to ensure that the conveyance was in fact valid. The abandonment rules in Georgia are very strict and very exact. They require specific findings by the government when they were giving up right-of-way to include, back in 2009, it would have been road in question, the right-of-way in question serves no substantial public purpose. We found no declaration by the city of Blue Ridge that that is in fact true. It may be true, but we found no declaration that that was in fact the case. Therefore, we do request, we do recommend that this conveyance be. Continuing to the bottom of page 11, there was a allegation, again, to emphasize these allegations were simply just that, allegations involving Councilmember Kendall's driveway. On or about 2012, the city paved a portion of Councilmember Roger Kendall's previously unpaved driveway at his personal residence at no cost to Councilmember Kendall. Section 2.16 of the city charter provides that no elected official shall use property owned by the government entity for personal benefit. It says more than that, but that's germane for our discussion. Our investigation revealed that the paving project in question was performed pursuant to the direction and authority of the acting city administrator at that time, Bill Sowers. Reportedly, the city water and sewer department was tasked with installing an 18-inch water main along Ava Street at near Councilmember Kendall's property. As part of that project, the water and sewer department was required to connect the water main to an adjoining 2-inch water line nearby, which required the city to dig across Councilmember Kendall's driveway and place an exposed water valve in the driveway. Due to concerns that personal vehicles and the city's garbage truck may cause damage to the undertaken valve, the decision was made by Mr. Sowers to form up and pour concrete to reinforce the area surrounding the valve. Pursuant to instructions from Mr. Sowers, the city paved approximately the first 8 feet of the driveway and covered the valve. Councilmember Kendall declares that he was out of town at the time of the project and that he did not request nor authorize the work to be done. Mr. Sowers has confirmed that information. As city administrator, Mr. Sowers was authorized to perform such repair work with an estimated value of $1,000 or less, but pre-approved from the city council. Mr. Sowers declared that this project was estimated to cost less than $1,000. Mr. Sowers further confirmed the paving project was ordered by him and on the basis of his concern for protecting the city's water main valve and to avoid further repair costs in the event of the valve's potential damage to passing vehicles. Our investigation has revealed no evidence to suggest that Councilmember Kendall's driveway was paved at his request or by his order or for his benefit. While our findings do not suggest any impropriety related to this improvement involving Councilmember Kendall's driveway, the very fact that questions have swirled around this transaction for some time serve to support the notion that all in government must place heightened considerations to transactions which raise the appearance of impropriety. A best practice would be that if there is going to be an expenditure of city funds or resources that serve to benefit elected officials or even employees, that some disclosure in a public forum be provided such that the public can know that there is no improper or self-interested dealing forming the basis for the transaction. On my second to last finding, then I'll be done. Council members, thank you for your patience with me. City cell phone carrier agreement. In 2011, the city voted to change its cell phone provider from Verizon to AT&T. This was raised as an issue of concern during phase 1 of the investigation because 2 of the city council members at the time, Rodney Kendall and Michael Eaton, had reported ties to AT&T and potentially stood to benefit financially from the AT&T transaction. Councilmember Kendall's wife was a manager at the AT&T store in which the sale originated, and Councilmember Eaton was an AT&T employee at a different store. There are sections of the charter that are directly on point. I won't get into them. I will just say that it's very customary in local governments that have ethical prohibitions that prevent elected officials from taking any official action for which they could derive a financial benefit, and the city of Blue Ridge is no exception. According to the May 12, 2009 regular city council meeting minutes, Councilmember Eaton abstained from that vote with respect to the cell service provider, while Councilmember Kendall voted in favor. Therefore, the limited issue presented by this inquiry is whether Councilmember Kendall had a financial or other personal interest in the transaction that was incompatible with the proper discharge of his official duties, such that he should have abstained from the vote as well. This investigation revealed that the transaction in question was handled by a sales representative for AT&T, and we uncovered no evidence to indicate that Councilmember Kendall's wife, and indirectly, Councilmember Kendall, stood to direct the benefit of the transaction. The offer was structured by an individual sales representative representative from AT&T and was presented to the city council during an open meeting consideration. The contracts were negotiated and executed by the sales representative and former city administrator Bill Sowers, and we have obtained no evidence to indicate that any other AT&T employee received a commission or financial benefit of any kind from that deal, including Councilmember Kendall's wife. Our discussions with the AT&T sales rep, which we have, verified this assertion. Based on the information provided to our firm during this investigation, there is no evidence to indicate that Councilmember Kendall was obligated to abstain from that vote. Furthermore, Councilmember Kendall advises that he discuss the issue with the city attorney prior to his vote, and based on the information provided by the city attorney, Councilmember Kendall was advised he need not recuse himself. Given that Councilmember Kendall reports that he conferred with the city attorney prior to casting his vote, this office is hard pressed to conclude there was any impropriety associated with his voting on the issue. One of the reasons for having city and county attorneys is to run ethical issues by them and secure guidance for future conduct. Matters of ethical impropriety must be determined on a case-by-case basis. The most clear-cut example of when an elected official must recuse from a matter is when their interest is conflicting based upon some sort of financial or material gain or benefit arising from an official action. The more difficult ethical conundrum arises when there is no financial or material gain to be derived by an elected official, but the circumstances by which you are asked to vote can lead an ordinary citizen to believe there is the appearance of impropriety associated with such activities. This can be a terribly challenging ethical matter to address and should be handled on a case-by-case basis. Our recommendation is that if you have a concern with respect to either a direct ethical concern or an appearance of impropriety, if you confer with your very capable city attorney to get guidance. In this instance involving the cell carrier, that appears to be. Graveling of a residence. Thank God I said 2 more issues, I meant 3. Now there's only 2. Graveling of parking lots. In January 2014, the city graded and graveled a parking lot for a private business in the city at no cost to the business owner. This investigation has revealed that in the latter portion of 2013, a street paving project was performed by the city, which resulted in the removal of a curb cut from one area of the subject business property and replaced another part of the property. Due to the newly located curb cut, the business owner reported excessive water runoff onto her property that allegedly resulted in physical damage. The business owner considered her complaints to the city council during a regularly scheduled public meeting and requested the city repair the damage by grading and graveling the lot. During a subsequent public meeting on January 14th of 2014, the city council voted in favor of clearing the lot as requested. Council members confirmed there was a received of litigation, and this was a business decision deemed to be in the city's best interest to avoid potentially costly litigation. Our investigation has revealed no evidence to suggest that this was a proper use of city funds. However, if there is any criticism that could be leveled in this transaction, we will go back to the issue of accountability and transparency. If a local government is going to spend funds on private property to address the condition created by the government that may lead to litigation, that is appropriate. Taking decisive and prompt action to remediate areas that could lead to litigation may in fact serve the interest of the taxpayer as it leads to immediate but lower expenditure that will likely forego a much larger expenditure if litigation is required. However, in order to foster transparency and accountability, and candidly from a risk management standpoint, it would be appropriate to have secured a release from any stormwater runoff claim associated with this event, given that apparently the threat of litigation is what occasioned the improvement on private property in the first place. In the future, I would recommend that if the city is going to engage in unilateral improvements on private property as a means to avoid litigation, we should secure a settlement agreement to memorialize that transaction. Our final issue is a issue involving Councilmember Hart. Final issue of concern identified during phase 1 involved allegations that Councilmember Hart may have utilized information obtained in the course of her role as a council member to further her own interest in acquiring property in the city. And specific allegations against Councilmember Hart suggest that through her role as a council member, she learned that future land use development adjacent to property that was for sale and took advantage of that confidential information to private property at less than anticipated future fair market value. Again, allegations. The pertinent section of the Blue Ridge Ethics Code is set forth in the book. investigation has revealed that in September of 2014, Councilmember Arp purchased property located on Main Street within the city. Councilmember Arp asserts that the purchase was a business decision motivated by a need for in-town property to be utilized by a private business and denies any ulterior or simple motivation. She further disavows any anticipated increase in future fair market value based on information obtained by any third party developer. Obviously, absent tangible evidence to claim otherwise, it is very challenging to contradict an individual's declaration as to their subjective motivations for taking action. Therefore, we will confine our review to objective facts. The key evidence with regard to any alleged impropriety involved in a real estate transaction is the chronology of the news. Discussions with the former property owner, the seller, during the course of this investigation revealed that the subject property had initially been placed on the market in March of 2014. At the time of the purchase agreement, approximately 6 months later, there were 2 pending offers on the property, one from Councilmember Arp and another from a third party. Councilmember Arp presented the higher offer, and that was accepted. While Councilmember Arp has confirmed that sometime in the summer of 2015, after this purchase, information became available regarding the potential development project in the adjacent area, she asserts that she was not privy to any such information prior to the September 2014 purchase. It is our understanding that the first time the subject development that we're talking about, the subject development that was in fact the information, was presented to council was during a regularly scheduled city council meeting on October 6, 2015. Currently, the property is still owned by Councilmember Arp. County Tax Assessor records indicate the subject property was purchased in 2014 for $210,000. The property has a current assessed value of $127,596. Although the previous value of this property was identified at $46,600, the 2014 purchase price still remains considerably higher than the current estimated value, which suggests there has not been a financial windfall as a result of this purchase property. Based upon the results of our investigation, we have uncovered no evidence to suggest this purchase was anything other than an arm's length transaction in the real estate market, which was subject to negotiation by and between multiple parties. The seller confirmed that Councilmember Arp offered to purchase the property at the listing price set by the seller or at a price reasonably close thereto, and this investigation has revealed no evidence to suggest that Councilmember Arp had an unfair advantage based on confidential information or otherwise reasons related to sale. Council members, you have been very patient with me as I went through the information. I will tell you that when I started, that you would be commended for doing this. I know there were a lot of allegations that were raised. You gave me the license to review those, and I thought were worthy of a considerable review. I hope that what has transpired here in 2016 you will feel has been a net positive for the city of Blue Ridge, what you have allowed me to do, the access that you have given me, the ability to interact with your staff. I hope the findings we made, both in phase 1 and phase 2, were deemed by the city of Blue Ridge to be of use. But as far as I'm concerned, members of the city council, this matter is now closed. Do you have any questions? If there's no questions, then I'm going to take my leave, and thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.